When you were born, you only had two fears: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. That's it, just two. Every other fear we carry, the fear of rejection, embarrassment, and failure, are learned, which means we can unlearn them too. Yet these fears often dictate who we are. They shape our approach to certain situations, our decisions, and choices. Today I'm going to explore how these fears take root in our brain and how we can finally learn to pull them out. Often these fears are internal conflict between what we know and what we feel. Logically, we might understand that a situation isn't dangerous, but emotionally it can still trigger a powerful response. When that happens, the emotional response normally wins because it's faster and it's automatic. Sometimes fears don't make sense at all. They're disproportionate or completely detached from real danger. We call these irrational fears, which are intense fear of a specific object or situation that impacts the ability to function. Unlike rational fears that occur for realistic reasons, these phobias persist regardless of potential threat. Now, when you hear this term, irrational fear, you could be thinking the big ones, like snakes, spiders, and heights. But these can show up in everyday life, such as being afraid to make your own doctor's appointment or a phone call, or leaping into bed or your car so nothing grabs your ankles. These all make us human, and our brains are wired to detect these so-called threats. That's your brain trying to protect you. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it's been doing the same thing for thousands of years. Back then, fear was a survival tool. It kept us alert, but the catch is the brain we have today is almost the same as the brain as humans thousands of years ago. And while we no longer face life or death situations on a day-to-day basis, our brain can still act like we do. It's our old brain trying to navigate this new world. Turns out, fear isn't just something we feel, it's something our brains create. At the center of this process is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep within the brain. Its job is essential for detecting threats and triggering fear responses. The challenge is, it's not good at distinguishing what a real physical danger is or what a social or emotional danger is. It responds the same way regardless. It's trying to protect us, but sometimes it overreacts. Developing these fears often comes from memories. If we have an uncomfortable experience, the brain will store that memory, sometimes very, very vividly. Then later, encountering that same situation, your brain can retrieve that memory and respond the same all over again. So an embarrassing moment, or even watching someone else panic at a situation, can teach your brain, hey, this thing is dangerous. And just like that, a new irrational fear is planted. Researchers have found that by the age of 2, toddlers start picking up social cues, like tone of voice and facial expression. We start to figure out what's safe and what's not, and that's a good thing. By the time we're 4 or 5, most of us know the feeling of embarrassment. We start to notice when people laugh at us instead of with us. Then elementary school comes. We start comparing ourselves, who's faster, who's louder, who's better at reading aloud. Maybe you raise your hand in class and get the answer wrong. That moment may last 3 seconds, but your brain can hold on to it for years. By middle school, fear starts to wear new names, like fear of not or being weird or not fitting in. It's about staying invisible when you need to survive the awkwardness. And now we're seniors in high school. After more than a decade of experiences, social training, and tiny moments that have planted seeds of irrational fears, many of which we never even realized were growing in the first place. The good news is, just because these fears were learned doesn't mean they're permanent. Our brains are constantly changing. They aren't even fully developed until our late 20s. Researchers have found when you repeatedly face our fears, our brain starts to change. The amygdala quiets down, and the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of your brain, gets louder. In other words, You're training your brain to stop overthinking. And one of the best ways to do that is exposure. You can never unlearn something by avoiding it. You unlearn it by walking through it over and over again until it no longer consumes you. Just look around. Everyone is on the edge of something unknown: adulthood, college, and jobs. Fear is constantly telling us to stay where it's safe. And for the longest time, that's exactly what I wanted to do. When I was little, my dad had this rule that every morning when me and my sister walked into daycare, we had to say good morning loud enough for anyone at the front desk or sitting in the waiting area to hear, every single day. I hated it. I just wanted to go straight to my classroom, to my familiar teacher and my familiar friends, and blend in. If I whispered it or mumbled it, my dad would walk me right back to the front and make me try again. Over time it got easier. I would start saying it every morning without having to be told or being told to speak up. I didn't know it then, but that tiny moment was teaching my brain that it's okay to do something that scared me. We all have these moments that are unique, tiny, and forgettable to almost everyone else. Throughout childhood, we collect little moments without realizing it. They start shaping our beliefs about ourselves. And what makes fear even more difficult is it's different for everyone. One person might fear speaking in front of a crowd, while another loves the spotlight but panics at the thought of having to talk to someone one-on-one. The problem is, not everyone understands that. Our parents have told almost every single one of us that we're just being dramatic, which could be true, but they look at our panic through the lens of their experience. And through that lens, something like being afraid of the dark might feel silly. This is a list of some of the most common fears we learn in childhood that carry over into adulthood. The most abundant fears are heights, snakes, and public speaking. And these fears can be more common than you think. With 70% of people who have irrational fears alone, 57% avoid situations where they could have faced their fear but they choose not to, 34% experience a physical reaction to their fear, such as sweaty palms or panic attacks, and then 41% have had a bad experience relating to that fear. But the truth is, once you recognize a fear for what it is, a message, not a fact, you can decide what to do with it. You can go one of two ways. You can either accept the fear and live within its limits, or you can challenge it and say, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyways. That's the choice we all have, but every time you face it, the fear starts to lose its power little by little. You grow. Your comfort zone stretches, and your brain literally starts to rewire itself. That fear may stay the same, but you grow as a person. For me, that started with good morning. For you, maybe it's trying something new, or just stepping outside your comfort zone. But sometimes it doesn't feel that simple, because when irrational fears really kick in, your body does not wait for your permission. It's not just about what's happened to us, it's also about what we see. That's where observational learning comes in. A study that Albert Bandura studied in the 1960s. Bandura ran a famous experiment called the Bobo doll experiment, where he had children watch adults interact with an inflatable clown toy. He had one group of adults quietly and calmly talk to the toy, and then another group kicked, yelled, and punched the toy. When the kids finally had their turns, the ones who watched the aggressive adults didn't just copy them, they hit, yelled, and screamed even louder. Bandura proved one thing: we learn by watching. And it doesn't just stop with clown toys. If you grew up watching someone panic every time a spider crawled into the house, you may not remember learning that, but your brain does, and after that, spiders equal danger. But instead of fighting these fears, we should face them with curiosity. And I don't mean overthinking questions, because it normally doesn't work. I mean by asking, is this fear still serving me? Or where did I learn this? Because maybe you're not scared of failing, you're scared of disappointing someone. Maybe you're not scared of starting, you're scared of what will happen if you don't succeed. Maybe you're not scared of being alone, you're scared of not being chosen. That awareness gives us power. Because if you're really scared to do something, it's probably the thing that you need to do the most. And this quote sums it all together: fear is boring because fear ever only has one thing to say to us: stop. Thank you.